to another episode of TechXY Turbo. My name is Frank Gullo, and I am your host. On this episode, we're joined by Dillan Sayers, a Buffalo-based automation engineer and longtime robotics mentor committed to expanding access to hands-on STEM education. At EWI's Buffalo Manufacturing Works, Dillan designs and integrates advanced automation systems, custom robotic solutions, and smart manufacturing technologies. His work draws on skills he began developing in high school through FIRST Robotics, where he first saw how transformative STEM experiences could be for young people. For more than a decade, he has mentored robotics students across Buffalo and Western New York, helping them build technical abilities, confidence, and direction. This passion led him to found Rust Belt Robotics, Buffalo's first free, community-based FRC program. What began with a few students in his garage has grown into a multi-school initiative serving youth from over 20 schools. Dillan, so great to have you on TechXY Turbo. How are you doing today?
Good, Frank. How are you?
I'm doing great. First big snow of the year. So to start, this is a tech podcast and, people have varied backgrounds in tech. So let's start with your story. You've got a very interesting background with mechanical aerospace engineering from UB, also experience with advanced manufacturing, with battery technology, and now automation engineering at EWI. So how did you first get into robotics technology? What was the year? What sparked your interest?
Really, it was joining a team similar to mine back in high school in Rochester, New York. I grew up in Churchville, Chili. I was lucky enough that our high school had a high school FIRST Robotics team, Team 340, Greater Rochester Robotics. I'll give them a little bit of credit here. And one of my longtime friends I've known since, kindergarten or something like that, decided to drag me to a robotics meeting. I started a little late compared to some, kind of in I think it was my sophomore year of high school. He dragged me into the robot lab and I never left, kind of a thing. And there's a lot of stories related to that, and people just, you get dragged into the robot lab one time and you're kind of hooked. So that was kind of my start to robotics. And then that evolved into kind of always knew I was going to be an engineer, but that kind of helped make me a better engineer and then push me kind of down that road, I think.
Cool. Let's elaborate on that a bit. So you were a participant on a FIRST Robotics team in high school, and then you mentored at Nichols for nearly 8 years before founding Rust Belt Robotics. For listeners who aren't familiar with these terms, can you first explain what is a FIRST Robotics competition? And more so, what technology challenges are you solving in these competitions?
Yeah, so I'll start with FIRST Robotics. So FIRST Robotics is a large educational nonprofit. It's really international at this point. So there's teams from all around the world we compete with, which is one of the really cool things about it. And there's various levels. So there's First Lego League. So much younger students can compete. Our team in Rochester or Buffalo doesn't have one yet. There's First Tech Challenge, which is kind of that middle school to high school, and then kind of a slightly more budget friendly kind of 18-inch by 18-inch sized robot competition. And then there's FIRST Robotics Competition, FRC, all within the FIRST umbrella that is a much bigger robot. So it's almost 150-pound robot when you're all said and done, competing on a 50-foot by 25-foot competition field, so almost the size of a basketball court. Every year for the FRC, we can focus on that one. We get a new challenge, and that's similar to FTC and FLL. But for FRC, it's slightly more abbreviated, your build time. So you get a new challenge in January. So our exciting time of the year is coming up. So if anybody's listening, you want to have your student join now is the time. So exactly a month from tomorrow, we get our new challenge. We'll have then, it used to be about 6 weeks when I was in high school. Some of the rules have changed where it's somewhere around 12 weeks now to build a whole competition robot to complete a new challenge. And it's kind of like 3-on-3 sports, if you will, where there's 3 robots competing against 3 robots. Only one of them is yours necessarily. And the challenge could be throwing frisbees, scoring dodgeballs, shooting shooting things, stacking things. We've stacked trash cans. We've thrown like exercise balls. We've, if you could name it, they've kind of come up with it in the past. And so it's a new challenge, and that's the fun part. Like everybody is designing a new thing all around the world. And then you get about 12 weeks and you show up and you get to see what everybody has. So
That sounds very cool. 3 months to build a robot. And before agreeing to do this, I stopped by the lab. So I have some photos that I'm going to post in the transcript. Very cool stuff. Okay. So you spent almost 8 years mentoring at Nichols before founding Rust Belt Robotics in 2022. What made you decide Buffalo needed a community team? What gaps were you seeing that school-based teams couldn't on their own fill?
So I'll go back to a bit of my story from Rochester. So I grew up in Rochester, kind of in the, late 90s, early 2000s. Rochester was a really, really good city to be in, and that benefited the robot teams a lot. So Rochester has about 20 different schools and robot teams in those schools, kind of in their community, right? So there's 20 teams. I went to UB for engineering, came to Buffalo and realized that was only really one team in Buffalo. And then we subsequently started another team, but both of those teams ended up being at private schools. So Nichols is a private school in Buffalo. I think it's safe to say they cost at least $25,000 a year to attend Nichols as a student. As I mentored them, it was kind of informal, but outside students were allowed to be on the Nichols robotics team. As we got more competitive through the years, I think some of the higher ups at Nichols, maybe not necessarily the teachers or the mentors there, wanted to kind of close that off a little bit more and make it so it's something you have to pay to Nichols to come do. I donated all my time for all those years, helping the students and all that. And I said, well, I think it should be free if you're getting all this donated time. And that's really how FIRST Robotics teams work, is you have all these engineering mentors and people that donate their time to teach the students. Not just your average teacher can teach this sort of stuff. Now there's some really good and excellent ones out there that can do that, but they need help. There's not a single teacher on their own on an FRC team anywhere in the world. I think it's safe to say they have a lot of help. So I kind of saw that need. There was only 2 teams in the community. Everybody couldn't join easily. So I was like, well, let's figure out how to make it free and make a community team that can service effectively all of Buffalo. I have a greater goal to start more teams in schools eventually. But right now we have students on our team from over 20 different schools from Buffalo and the surrounding communities, students from coming all the way from Warsaw at times. We have a student that comes in from France and joins our team and then goes home. A few students that have immigrated to Buffalo from places like Bangladesh and from around the world. So that's pretty cool.
That's great. That's great. And thank you for sharing the backstory. And, all parents are concerned about cost activities for their kids. And I want to, highlight that a little more. So Rust Belt Robotics is free for all students to join and accepts students from any school and any background. That seems to me a significant commitment, as robotics programs, to your point, can be expensive. So how do you make that work? What does it take to run a technology program like that that's truly accessible to everyone, all kids in the area?
Making it work's been a lot of fun, and I've done a lot of learning in that part. I came being an engineer, and now I feel like I do more other stuff than engineering, as I'm sure most company and nonprofit founders do. But so every year we write grants and all that stuff to try to make it free for our students to attend. We try to have the students and the parents participate and help as much as they can. So when we travel, if parents can come with their students and all that stuff, that's great. If not, we try to support them as much as we can to get to competitions and all that. Those grants, the companies within Buffalo. So we ask companies in Buffalo to sponsor the team. And that's a big part of what we do. But slowly, I think those companies are finding they want my students because they're frankly the best in Buffalo. A few of them have gotten some pretty high-end internships. A few of them have graduated and are going to colleges in Buffalo. A lot of them and most of them for technology degrees, neuroscience degrees, engineering degrees. So that's pretty neat in general. But as far as trying to make that happen and keeping it free, it's a pretty big obligation, and it's been tough, and I'm learning how to make that happen as we go. I like saying I like going from good problem to good problem. So needing more money is a good problem because it means I have more students and more students to support, and it means we're growing. So every good problem is a good thing, I suppose.
Well, thanks for that. So on the skill side, we touched on that. You work in automation and advanced manufacturing at EWI. And before that, you worked on battery technology and specialized processing equipment. When you're teaching students electrical, programming, mechanical design through robotics, how directly does that connect to real-world engineering careers? Are you building Buffalo's future workforce? And it seems like you alluded to that with the last answer.
I would say very much so. So our robots we build to try to give everybody a picture are very very mechanical in nature. So you're not just picturing like this robot arm, which we do get students opportunities to play with and learn on. Even at EWI last summer, we did a summer camp with some on site. But more so the robot I always view as like a vessel for learning. So our robots are designed and built from scratch, and that's kind of the vessel for learning, right? So and all the things that involve around it. So and all these engineering disciplines just past robotics that kind of then end up relating into those professions and things I've had in the past. But our students learn to machine and CAD model our robot parts. And that, directly goes into, I use CAD almost every single day for the last, I don't know, I guess 15 or so years of being a professional engineer and then being in engineering school and all that. It's almost an essential thing. It's almost like breathing CAD modeling for a mechanical engineer. And then more and more too, like we're all the engineers, not just your standard computer engineer, need programming and all that to be able to read everything. I have to dabble in programming here and there, despite having just a mechanical engineering degree. If you're touching engineering, you kind of have to know all the disciplines. So it's extremely relatable because some of the stuff I do at work is the same things I'm doing at the robotics lab. Some days I'm 3D printing something for work, a new robot gripper or a new end effector or something like that. And then I go to robotics and teaching the kids how to 3D print a gear or something for a new robot. Or this year we're actually for our FTC team, we're 3D printing a whole robot frame, trying to 3D print the whole robot kind of for a fun limiting activity. So it's very, I guess, very relatable and very straightforward, actually, kind of how it integrates into real world engineering, which is pretty excellent.
Yeah, very fascinating. And working in IT and worked years alongside engineers, like to walk us through what it takes to build a competition robot. So for those listening, what technologies are they learning? Like what programming languages are they? Can they look these up, online in AI? What control systems and mechanical design tools? Are you seeing standardization, or is it just a lot of a variety of tools and languages? So what would you say to those listening who are kind of interested in details?
So FIRST, especially FRC, has become a bit of an arms race in the past. I don't know. I guess it's always been that way, but especially of late. So there is some standardization that happens, but then something comes out just like your real world, like AI over the last few years, and stirs the whole pot. So that's been fun. But as far as programming languages, our robots can program with C++, Java, or LabVIEW, which are all relatively relevant. But then we also have kind of onboard computing on the robot that we can add. So we can add Arduinos, we can add Raspberry Pis, we can add Orange Pis, all those fun little microprocessors. And those program in similar things, but also like Python and all of those other relevant programming languages. So there isn't much in the way of very current era relevant programming languages that we don't have the opportunity to touch in the lab. And then we also learn, so we have a few CNC routers in our lab, one of which the students actually kind of rebuilt and we tied it into a new controller and all that. So they learn Mach 3, which is a pretty relevant CNC control integration system. We post G code, so we use CAD CAM to post our G code of our robots to our CNC machines. We cut them out, so just like your average manufacturing environment would. So your machine shops and that sort of thing. Anybody using Mastercam, our students have that sort of opportunity. We're using CAD softwares, and right now I have students using anything from Onshape to Autodesk Inventor to SolidWorks, and then a few people using FreeCAD. So we have probably like 4 different CAD softwares our robots are getting modeled in here and there. I kind of let the kids pick. I don't have, as far as standardization, I try to avoid that. And lately I feel more and more pushed to use stuff that the kids talk about. So I don't want to be that old guy or that old curmudgeon that's using, I won't name a given software so they don't come hunt me down. But, but especially like a lot of my students are coming in saying, hey, Onshape is real easy, Dylan. Why aren't you using this? And I'm like, well, last year I was resisting. This year I'm kind of starting to crack on it. And I've opened it up and started playing around with it. And I'm still not as good at it. But, for that standardization question, our kids do push a lot of the technology and it evolves quite a bit, just like industry. And I think some cases, FIRST Robotics is where some of the interesting stuff, the smartest kids are doing FIRST Robotics from around the world. So then they'll graduate, they'll go to engineering school, and then they'll get into industry and they'll say, I want to use this tool because I'm good at it. So, and that's why I think things like Onshape as a CAD software, I should probably learn it. So.
Yeah, as a bit of a follow-up. So just to date myself a little bit, when I was in middle school, we had shop class, right? So I specifically remember our metalworking and wood classes. Those are probably my favorite classes, right, of that year. And have you made learning fun for students? Are they realizing what they're learning? Like, how does that map to the real world in your experience?
I like to say that our environment is really fun. I have a lot of kids, on occasion they're saying, hey, Dylan, I need something to do type of a thing, which is good though. They're not sitting around and not doing anything. So asking for something to do is another one of those good problems. But I guess as they go, I think they realize what they're learning, but I also don't think they value it quite as much. I have some students that start that one day I realized this small group of my students didn't even know what a Phillips head screwdriver was. So, but they also probably can program in JavaScript, but they don't know what a Phillips head screwdriver is. So it's like, all right, guys, let's find, so I have like an old kit robot that we accidentally kind of purchased at one point or another. We didn't opt out of it in our kit of parts. And I go, all right, guys, let's put this robot together. It kind of comes with instructions. And so they're, learning how wrenches work, what an open end wrench is, what this is. They definitely would have went looking for the left-handed crescent wrench if I asked them to. And some of them do. So, it's that fun learning environment. We have some mentors that are super enthusiastic. We have one new mentor, Tucker, that the guy has it feels like 40 3D printers in his garage at home. He 3D prints Iron Man outfits and stuff, and he wears them to robot meetings. And so, getting the kids kind of around engineers that are excited about engineering is a big part of it. And I think the learning that they do, I think sometimes they don't even realize all of what they're learning because they're just in this environment. The lab's kind of this maker space, and they don't really, I guess, fully realize kind of the things they're adjacent to, that they're kind of, if you will, osmosising into their head as they go through a robot meeting.
Right. The name Rust Belt Robotics seems intentional, that you're embracing Buffalo's industrial heritage. How does the history inform what you're building? And why is Buffalo, New York, with its manufacturing legacy, a great place for robotics and STEM education renaissance?
Well, I think I kind of going back to that Rochester Buffalo comparison, I really think, effectively now is that time for Buffalo. Kind of that resurgence is either started to happen or already is happening. I like going to that roots of Buffalo. Buffalo has a lot of, beauty in the old buildings and things that are around and a lot of industrial manufacturing used to happen here. And I think a lot of it still does. There's some amazing stuff that happens in Buffalo. I get the opportunity at work. We run a program called Shift 2.0 where we help small, medium-sized manufacturers integrate new robotics and technologies. And the types of companies I get to go into in Buffalo and see is just incredible. And they're just kind of sitting here making stuff, plugging away. And so they need people and students that are excited about engineering. And I think, UB is a great example of their engineering programs doing excellent. We're graduating a lot of engineers, but we got to keep them in Buffalo and keep growing Buffalo. So tying that, I guess, that Rust Belt Robotics name into Buffalo, a lot of people, I think, sometimes think Buffalo is a little bit on the fringe of that Rust Belt, but they truly are a part of it. So is trying to kind of put that kind of, I guess, mentality. And our team is, we go to competitions, we're scrappy, and it has that Buffalo personality. I think everybody kind of agrees with that kind of personality that Buffalo has, that Rust Belt kind of personality that's there. But we're also new and kind of upcoming and kind of, if you will, steamroll and kind of into new things. So that's kind of why we kind of took that name and decided to use it and go with it. So.
Yeah, no, I think it works. I think you're also tapped into, there's a fair amount of advanced manufacturing here as well, right? So there's a lot of engineers, right? There's certain aircraft, industrial, to name a few. So you're tying into both the old and the present, like an up and coming team that, that has had some success. So for you've been running Rust Belt Robotics for over 3 years now. What changes since you started have you seen in the students who participate? And beyond the individual students, how is this affecting Buffalo's broader tech and engineering community?
I guess with our students, so I last year was kind of like a bittersweet year for me. We had our first and last student to have ever been with the program for its whole entire life graduate and go to college last year, right? So I won't get another one of those because now the history is 1 year shorter, right? For our students. So he's at UB for mechanical engineering and aerospace. But like him in particular, I like using the student as an example. He was a recent immigrant from Bangladesh, joined our robotics team pretty recently after immigrating, went to a Buffalo City school, joined our team, had a lot of, I guess, social anxiety and that sort of thing. Didn't like big rooms with big environments and all that sort of stuff, which I don't blame him. He had a lot of new stuff going on, including a new language and a new country and a new state and a new home and all that stuff. But, as he developed through 3 years, he ended up bringing more students to our robotics lab than anybody else. And I don't know what his, career trajectory was as a, sophomore/freshman in high school when we met him. But, he graduated, he's going to UB for mechanical and aerospace engineering. We still see him at the robot lab here and there. So, our students, I guess, change a lot. I don't, it's hard to say what credit I should take for that or what credit, it's really all them doing it. And I just put them in the space. And certainly they learn a lot from everybody else there around too, not just at the robotics lab, but it's kind of incredible to see some of our students. Sometimes they'll come in and they'll all of a sudden be 12 inches taller. It's pretty incredible to see as we go, what they learn, what they're capable of. All of a sudden, some student will come in and they'll decide, all right, I'm going to be locked in and I'm going to start really doing this particular part of robotics, right? After say a year of kind of dabbling around and goofing around and being the kid that kind of is not always so focused. Now all of a sudden I have a programmer or a kid that wants to run the CNC machine all day or a 3D printer or something like that they really want to focus in on and do. So that's pretty incredible. And then I guess to the second part of your question, as we grow and develop, I think, providing Buffalo with that next generation of engineers and innovators, I think will help grow Buffalo, feed us into more advanced manufacturing, more robotics. Obviously robots is coming, AI is coming, and it's changing the world slowly, but also quickly in some instances too. So I think it helps prepare those students, our city, and all that for all that change too.
Definitely. And for those out of the area, so Dillan and I are talking about Buffalo and Rochester. They're about an hour away, and I kind of see the ecosystems blending together. But before we came on, I was on LinkedIn, and one of the things I wanted to ask you about, so you work with real robots, you actually build robots. I see a lot of the imagery of robots either as like kind of a robot servant, like Optimus, or the Terminator, right? So how do you feel about how robots and AI are being portrayed? Do you feel this is mainly fear-mongering or marketing? Like, as someone who works with them and sees the real potential, what's your take on the current climate of how robots are portrayed?
Yeah, I guess I think if you're looking at your everyday, like, I don't know if it's TikTok or Instagram portrayal of robots and all that, I'm not sure that's, all that accurate. I don't necessarily think AI is coming to get us. I think there's some things we should probably be watching out for, but I think it'll generally be, a big help. There's some things that I'm really excited and waiting for someone to develop to help my everyday, running a robot team and having a day job and all that stuff. There's some things that AI could help me do every day that would make some things easier, so I have more time to spend places that I enjoy. But looking in like the manufacturing facilities and what robotics can do there, in a lot of cases you have people that are saying, oh, these are taking jobs and that sort of thing. In a lot of cases, we're putting robots in places where they can't fill a job because it's either a mundane task that someone doesn't want to do, and so they have a lot of turnover, a task that someone's getting, injured in or something like that you need a robot. And in a lot of cases, there's this skill gap. So if you can relieve somebody from doing something that's very repetitive, so they can go learn something and make the company even better. I think that's a lot of what we do with robotics. So I don't buy much into the, robots are taking our jobs thing, because a lot of cases they can't fill the jobs anyway. And then for things like Optimus, and I think those are longer outsets. Those robots are definitely coming. I think there's a lot of cases where, the robot arms and stuff we like implement in industrial settings are the more practical things to be talking about and learning about and looking at right now. And I think those are the ones that are most greatly impacting people's lives, whether they see it or not. That's what's, I know, like, prices and costs of things are pretty high, but they're not astronomical, I think, in a lot of cases, because some of these robots are manufacturing things that in the past were, all done by hand, and that's freeing people up to do things that are they can be more passionate about, I suppose.
Right. Good point. Thank you. And speaking of AI and robots helping, I asked an AI assistant to analyze your background and generate a closing question. So let's see what it came up with. So, Dillan, you've combined your professional engineering expertise with a passion for education to create something that didn't exist before, Buffalo's first community robotics team. As you look at the next generation of students going through Rust Belt Robotics, what emerging tech or engineering fields are you most excited to expose them to? And what does success look like in 5 years from now and 10 years from now, both for the students, for Buffalo, for you, and Rust Belt Robotics?
I guess I'll start with the beginning there, exposing them. I'd like to try to figure out more and more how we can integrate AI into the building of our robot. I think that's obviously a new field, and I think there's a lot of cool applications of AI, even with the capability level that it's out already, that can be leveraged. And I think the younger generation are the ones that'll have the cool ideas on how to leverage that. I think, just like I think 3D printing's going through a revolution right now, where people thought maybe 5 years ago, oh, well, this is as good as it can get. And then in the last 5 years, it's just blown up. And I don't know, I saw somebody selling soap filament the other day. Who would have thought you wanted to 3D print with soap, but now you can, right? So I think that's the type of stuff that, getting our students into AI, figuring out how it can help them develop and engineer things. I view it as a tool, like a calculator, right? They should learn it and use it because it's a tool they have in their engineering portfolio. Really, all engineers do is learn how to solve problems better than everybody else, and knowing what tools you have to solve those problems is half of the battle, right? If you don't know a tool exists, you can't use it, and if you don't know how to use it, especially, you can't use it and you can't leverage it. So, and then for outset, Rust Belt Robotics is, it's been growing significantly. I started 3 years ago in my garage with 3 students, and we now have maybe about 30 to 40 students in total on the team, which is another one of those good problems to have. As we grow, I'd like to see, really what, Rust Belt Robotics, maybe viewing it a little less as just a robotics team and more as an opportunity to do a little bit more for Buffalo. We're developing a great makerspace with a lot of tools, and how we can leverage and help, maybe people other than just students. So as we grow, I want to expand the types of students we can reach out to, maybe younger, maybe a few older as well, right? Everybody's a student in our lab, including myself. So we have a few young UB engineers that have been mentoring our team, and we've been helping they're a new company. They're doing a new educational company, and they might be a neat one to have on the podcast at some point. They're developing boards that you can build your own robot and design your own robot right here in Buffalo, which is pretty neat. And we've been helping them here and there with, some of our tools and 3D printers and stuff as they've been developing products and that sort of thing. So, seeing Rust Belt Robotics maybe grow into some more of that stuff and supporting our mentors and all that as we go would be pretty neat. And then also expanding the teams in Buffalo. I didn't start Rust Belt Robotics to be the only community team that wasn't in a private school in Buffalo. So I'm hoping we can, expand that to include other teams, whether they're in schools or another community team, or even more robotics teams within our building would be great. Acquiring more mentors, more students, and then more support, right? Getting that support from manufacturers in Buffalo to help either volunteer and mentor the team or donate to the team, or even provide. We like getting our students tours at different manufacturing sites around Buffalo, which is another fun thing. So
great. No, I'm excited to get this out to my network. And really that brings us to the close. And Dillan, it's been really great having you on TechXY Turbo, learning your story. So to close, where can listeners connect with you, learn more about you and Rust Belt Robotics? And also for parents, and you mentioned the competition 1 month, any specific dates they should be in mind this holiday season? Just close us out with information for people who want to learn more.
Yeah, so we're very, very accessible. I think if you Google search robotics in Buffalo, we're like the third thing down after UB. But you can search Rust Belt Robotics. We have a website. Our email is rustbeltroboticsbuffalo at gmail.com. And then we're on Facebook, Instagram, so you can message us there as well. Our current lab is up in Gettsville, New York, right by the University of Buffalo. So any UB students or mentors that want to come help mentor. For ages for parents and students, FRC is supposed to be a high school focused oriented program. But we also have students as young as 8 years old on the team. But I like saying those younger students are very focused, dedicated students that we've acquired. So I like letting those younger students come for a meeting and feel it out and see what they think. And we've been also looking at starting an FLL team as well at some point in the future. So even if you have those younger students, I'd like to know of parents that are interested in students that want to be on an FLL team. So maybe as we grow here and I decide to start one, I have that list of interested students that we can reach out to. So those are the main ways to contact us and get a hold of us. And as far as dates, so a month from tomorrow, January 3rd is kickoff day. So that's when our FRC team gets our brand new, interesting, fun challenge. I like saying it's the biggest day of the year because competition's a little too stressful to be the biggest, funnest day of the year. So we get the new competition where we're feeling out the game, where we do some like test game where we like play the game out like as humans to see what types of scores we can get and what types of strategies. And we start talking about robot design, even though we should be talking about just general strategy. And that really kicks off the next, 12 weeks of intense fun and learning and all that. So, if you can, it's not too late after that point, but I would say, reach out and try to have your student at kickoff day if you can, because that's really the funnest, most exciting day of the year. And kind of nobody feels left behind at that point because they get the same challenge the same day. So
really good. So also, as I mentioned, we did take some photos. So when you post the transcript, we'll include the photos. And I believe you had some videos of the competition too. So I'll include those. But Dillan, it's been great to have you. Thanks. And we're looking forward to hearing what you do next.
Yeah, thanks, Frank.